I'm not tired of this. Now, this is a 20-pound Parrott rifle. It's a Civil War era piece of artillery. These were used on land and at sea. Specifically, the 10-pounders are the ones that were used on land most times. 20-pounders and the 30-pounders. You see a picture of a 150-pounder that was on a ship similar to this one. So they ranged in all different sizes, 10 pounds being the lightest, so this is not a very large piece of naval artillery. But its main innovation is that A, it's a rifled gun, and B, it's got this reinforced breech back here. Civil War era and earlier pieces of artillery tended to occasionally catastrophically explode. So this is a reinforcement to keep it from doing just that. This particular gun is a reproduction, so it does not actually have lands and grooves cut into the barrel for simplicity's sake, but the historical ones would have. Lands and grooves give the projectile spin, stabilizing it in flight and allowing it to be more accurate. The downside is you're not able to shoot as variety of ammunitions out of these guns that you would other types of guns. The guns down below, for instance, are 8-inch guns. They're smooth bore and they fire just a regular shell. These fire solid shot or shell. They just don't have the same amount of explosive in this size that they would have the ones down below. So the accuracy comes with a trade-off on this particular vessel. We have a range of about 1.5 miles. So if you look over at the Domino Sugar sign over there and the associated factory, refining factory, that's about where it's about the limit of our range. The crew of this would be about 5, and you're looking at about 2 minutes to fire and fully load and fire this gun. Do you have any questions before we begin? Alright, so first things first, the muzzle loading gun. So we've got to run it inside the ship. So that's what me and my coworker here are going to be doing. Bringing it inside the ship. Alright, now for the safe handling of implements, I'm going to be putting on some gloves.
Taking out your cell phone?
Taking out my cell phone. It gets in the way. They're too big to stay. Alright, this here is my worm. This is for sponging, worming out the inside of the barrel, aka cleaning. So, if there's anything left in the barrel from residual firings to scraps of cloth or tin foil in our case, this would be part of the cleaning step of the gun before firing, which would be observed every time before the gun would be fired. We have wormed small objects out of there that were inadvertently or purposefully put down there by small children. If you could do the thumb small again. And then we have my combination sponge and worm. Oh, sorry, sponge and rammer. It's been a long day for me. Sponge here, we are going to. It's slightly damp, so it's not going to be a completely dry sponge, but we're going to leave it unwetted for the time being, considering we didn't actually fire this gun immediately beforehand. But if we had just fired this gun, we would put it in the sponge bucket and then run it down the gun barrel to extinguish any embers left over from firing. As it is, we're just going to put it down the gun barrel. My coworker here has his thumb on the vent. It's called thumbing the vent. And what that does is he's creating, by covering the other hole and the sponge is going down the barrel, it's basically creating a vacuum once I start pulling the sponge back out, which is going to assist in my cleaning as well as extinguishing any embers that would be left over from firing inside the gun barrel. That is another historical step that we do here, and as well as would be done historically. If you wouldn't mind passing me the charge there. Alright, so because canvas, not typically used, but because flannel or linen would be the typical gunpowder charge, and those are kind of expensive these days, we are going to be using aluminum foil. This is about 5 ounces of gunpowder, which is about our regular charge. It's a little bit more extra because it's sort of a holiday. And, I mean, see, not technically a holiday. I guess it is Flag Day, so I guess you can just count that. But this would normally take a a 20-pound cannonball, or a shell in this case, hence why it's called a 20-pound Parrott rifle. So that would need 2 pounds of gunpowder to fire fully. We're not adding the shell, hence we don't need that much gunpowder. And so this won't cause the gun to recoil or anything. It also means we get to use it a lot more. And so this is what we're going to be putting down the gun barrel, and then I'm going to have to puncture this with a priming pick, which you'll see once we run the gun bag outside. The first step would be to load the powder, then the shell, unlike a modern artillery piece where it's shell, then powder, because they're all breech loaders. Oh, we'll give them fair warning.
Kind of like the human cannonball we do our circus. Like some shit guy out of the cannon. This thing's fast. You can shoot at 16 miles an hour. Battleship go off. Their shells are the size of
Alright, now this is the audience participation portion. So we need a few strong hands to come up here and help us run this gun out. You've been volunteered. I mean, this is the 19th century Navy, so you can be volunteered. Come on up. You always wanted to use a cannon.
Yeah.
Don't lie to yourself. Anyone else?
Nobody else?
Here, so take a hold of this line. Sir, yep, they're on that side.
Get up here.
Yep, and anyone? Last chance. Last chance, yeah. One of you, come on. So you stand right up here. Alright, so there's 2 commands, action and haul. Action, we make sure there's no slack in the line, and then haul, we're going to pull through. The main thing to remember is we'll keep your feet fully planted, and only do things on the command. So don't anticipate commands, just pull through, one pull, and then wait until I say it again to do the next actions, okay? Alright, so we're going to give it a test, see how we do, and then go from there. Ready? Action. Halt. And keep your feet firmly planted, guys. Action. Halt. Action. Halt. Action. Halt. That is well. So you can put your lines down. Give a nice little round of applause to my gun crew. And now priming pick. Alright, so this here is my priming pick. We saw that my charge didn't have a nice little hole or something to insert my powder. So I've got to puncture my charge, and this would be used to puncture the flannel bag that these would generally come in. This is, although you can kind of not tell because of the amount of soot on it, but this is brass. Does anyone know why we use brass? Doesn't spark. Doesn't spark when it's struck against iron or steel. So that's the reason why we use brass. I'm going to take this priming wire or pick and then drive it down the vent tube of the gun here to puncture my bag of powder, to expose it so that once I'm ready for my fuse, my primer, it'll be ready. Last but not least, this is my friction primer. This is what I'm actually going to be using to set off the gun. No prizes for figuring out why it's called a friction primer. It's because it uses friction. It's a brass tube filled with a little bit of extra gunpowder, crimped and sealed at one end with wax, and very lightly waxed at the other end so that the powder doesn't fall out. I insert my lanyard hook through the eye of this loop here, and then once I pull it, the friction and the heat, with a combination of a little chemical called mercury fulminate, it creates enough heat to touch off the gunpowder inside the tube, which then would set off the gun. So because I have no prediction on where this will land, I do have to ask all of y'all who are forward, or at least behind this mast here, to step forward of it. So as long as you're underneath that awning, this has a very low likelihood of hitting you. It's not terribly painful, but it's akin to being stung by a bee, which I don't have a very high threshold for, and I'm sure most Amazonians.
Oh yeah, what you mean? You heard it earlier.
Now we're just going to warn everybody around us so no one has a heart attack or anything.
They ain't gonna hit.
Everybody's used to
Hit the
jets and
siren.
stuff. Attention to the pier. Constellation is about to fire its gun. I repeat, Constellation is about to fire its gun. Do not be alarmed.
Just jump.
They're not allowed to be alarmed. Constellation is about to fire a gun. Do not be alarmed.
Hold your ears, man.
And now that the little water taxi's gone too, we're safe. Alright. Not gonna be nearly as loud as those jets, but you're still welcome to cover your ears. I'm gonna take my hat off just in case it flies away. I'm gonna say make ready and then fire. You'll know what happens after that. Alrighty. Make ready! Fire! Alright, thank you all so much for visiting. Please don't approach the gun until we've cleaned it. We consider it live until it is fully cleaned. Once you can come up and ask us any questions, but just don't approach us while we're cleaning the gun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nah, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad over here as it was.